Hi, I'm Cassie from Faodail Creation and I want to give you some basic sewing tips and tricks. So when you come home from the store with your new fabrics, you're going to want to wash them. The reason for this is that your fabric's going to shrink, and if you're making dresses or clothes, you don't want to go to all the effort of making the dress and then all of a sudden it's now shrunk 1 or 2 sizes, because you're always going to get at least a 20% shrinkage. So the first thing to do is come home and throw that fabric straight in the washing machine. So now our fabric's come out of the wash and it's all creased and crinkled. So we want to prepare this fabric for use, and we want to iron it. We want to iron it because, as you can see, we've got bumpy sides and we want to get a nice straight cut, and you can't cut things straight if they're not lying flat. So give your fabric a good iron. Now our fabric is ready to be used for our project. When I first started, I used scissors. Now I really like my Rotary Cutter, and it all depends on your project, because if you're doing dressmaking you may have to revert back to your scissors. When you're cutting with your scissors, make sure that you do long cuts. This helps to keep your line straighter. Like so, rather than taking little mini cuts. Now it looks a bit rougher. My favourite way to cut is to use the Rotary Cutter, and when I make bags or if I make a quilt, it gives me a really good straight line. And along with my cutting mat here, there's like 1-inch squares along the mat, and I can line up my fabric to the line, and I can match this line to this line. So now I know I've got a straight line and I can just cut. It gives me a perfect cut every time. If I'm cutting squares for a quilt, I like to use my square here that's 6 by 6. So for this demonstration I'm going to cut a 4 by 4 square, so I can line my fabric on my mat, and then I can line my 4-inch by 4-inch on the fabric, and then I can just cut. So now I have some 4-inch squared samples. I'll meet you guys at the sewing machine. So I've loaded 2 different colours in my sewing machine, just because I want you to see where the thread, the top thread goes, and where the bobbin thread goes. When you're doing your project, you'll want to be matching the same coloured thread as your fabric. So here you would want to be using a pink, not yellow and turquoise. When you first start sewing, on patterns they'll give you a seam allowance guide. Now these seam allowances are marked on your sewing machine, and when you first start it's hard to get a straight line. So what tips can I offer you to get your straight line? You can use one of these magnetic holders and you can put it in the line of the seam allowance guide, and then you butt up the fabric and then you start sewing. But the problem with some of these is if you have a computerized sewing machine, you shouldn't really use them because they can actually mess up the computerization of them sewing machines. So always seek advice from the place you bought your sewing machine from before you use one of these little guys. Another way is to simply get some painter's tape or masking tape, stick it on your machine and use that as your guideline to sew your straight line. My personal favourite way is the use of this 1/4 inch foot. As you can see, there's a little black marker and that gives you your 1/4 inch seam. So now, as you can see, you can just put your fabric up to the edge of that black marker and you're going to have a perfect 1/4 inch seam allowance every time. And it works when you go around in corners, it works when you go in a straight line. It's absolutely fantastic. I've cut another 2 pieces of 4x4 fabric to show you the difference between the right side and the wrong side of the fabric. Now, with the top broadcloth, there's no real wrong side to it, it's the same on both sides. However, when you use a pattern like these polka dots, you now have a right side and a wrong side. So this side here, the side that has design on, is the right side. The one that doesn't have design on is the wrong side. So when we're sewing, we always put our right sides together. And when you're new to this, you do make the mistake of putting the right side and the wrong side together like that by accident. That's just normal, you're going to do that, but just remember, whenever you're sewing a seam together, you're going to do right side to right side. And now we've got our 2 pieces right sides together, and it's best practice to start pinning your fabrics in place, especially if you're dressmaking. You don't want any of these fabrics to move. So we're going to pin our fabric in place all the way down. So now you have your fabric pinned together and it's lined up with the markings of your 1/4 inch seam allowance. You're going to pick one of your basic straight stitches. So you're going to start sewing. I would just sew on a really slow speed. You can make your sewing machine go slower or faster. And you don't want to ride over your pins, not only because they may break on you and could possibly shoot off into your eye, but also if you noticed it puckers the fabric slightly and it doesn't produce a straight line, it creates a bump in your stitches. So as you're sewing, always remove your pins. So I have my sewing machine set on a 2.6 stitch length. You don't want it to be too tight, but then you don't want it to be too slack. Just practice. Now the first things first, you want to take a few stitches forwards, removing the pin, and then don't forget to backstitch. This sends your stitch into reverse, it locks your first few stitches into place, and then you go forwards again. And we're going to go all the way to the end, removing the pins. Oops. And then when you come to the end, you're going to want to backstitch again to lock that stitch into place. And then go forwards. And that's your first straight line complete. So remember how we had a yellow thread and a turquoise thread? So the yellow thread was the one that you mount on top of your machine, and that does the top stitching. That's from your needle. And then your turquoise thread, which was the bobbin thread, is underneath your machine. And this is the bobbin thread right here. So once we've completed our first stitch, you want to get into the habit of pressing your seams down. So we're going to open up, and there you go, your seam. But we want this to lie much flatter. See how it's just curling up there? When we press that, that seam will now disappear, and it makes your items look a lot more professional when they've been pressed and not so handmade. So here we are with my iron and my fabric. First thing, lock your seams down. And then we're going to open Now it depends which way you've been taught previously. There's two ways of ironing the seam. Some people iron it like this, pushing both of the sections down and then ironing the seams down, like so. So now the flatter and the seam is much flatter than previously. I like to go over it again, like so. The second way of ironing the seam, and often quilters do this, so we're going to lock our seam again, and then we're going to open, and we're going to take the iron and we're literally going to iron across. And there you go, we have a flat seam once again and again. Just go over it again, and it's nicely pressed. When I do a tutorial on quilting, I'll let you know why this way is much better than doing the centre version. So now you know how to sew in a straight line. And don't forget, practice makes perfect. So get back to your sewing machine and keep at it. Don't forget to hit subscribe on my YouTube channel for more future videos. Thank you very much. Bye.